It was the Subaru that led a double life. On one side, it was a family sedan with optional all-wheel drive and a nice boxer engine. On the other side, it was a rallying rocket ship driven by the one, the only Colin McRae. No, not that one. Talk about the Legacy. Subaru had always been the odd one out in the Japanese auto industry, while Honda, Nissan, Toyota were all selling affordable family cars around the world with a halo car for good measure. Subaru was selling things like the Boxster-powered 1000, the Brat pickup truck with bucket seats in the bed, and the futuristic-looking SVX coupe. Therefore, they wanted something more conventional, a worldwide family sedan. And the Legacy was developed in 1987 to be launched in 1989 as an attempt to follow Lexus and Acura into the global market, or more specifically in those two cases, the US market. But it was still a Subaru though, which meant it still had some quirks like a 4-cylinder boxer and optional all-wheel drive. The bodywork was also a less extreme philosophy of the SVX, with emphasis on subtle curves instead of boxy angles to reduce drag, and the electronics were pretty good for 1989 with electric door locks, power-assisted steering, ABS, disc brakes, independent suspension all 4 corners, and even adjustable air suspension as an option. The engines were also really good. The Boxster layout made the center of gravity really low and improved the handling, and the best versions of the engine made 217 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque. That RS model was a proper sports sedan, with a 2,900-pound weight and all-wheel drive. It also had a 5-speed manual gearbox, better brakes, bigger tires, and even a slightly detuned estate variant. But wait. You're off topic, mate. You're just talking about the WRX, not the Legacy. Well, where do you think the WRX came from? The Impreza is based off the Legacy. And by power of deduction, you could probably guess that the WRX is based off the RS. And this philosophy extended to their motorsport program as well. Subaru had been rallying on and off since 1980, but they partnered up with ProDrive in 1990 to enter the WRC properly with the Legacy. The Group A car got 300 horsepower and a crack team of drivers, including the 1978 WRC champion Marco Allen and the future WRC champion Richard Burns. But the car simply wasn't good enough, especially compared to Lancia and Toyota, so it scored just 3 podiums in as many years. But they had hired a young Scotsman named Colin McRae. We've talked about him a few times, mainly about how he's the fastest rally driver in the world until he flies off the road. And the Legacy gave him that start. He joined Subaru in 1992 and gave the Legacy its second ever podium at the Swedish Rally by finishing second. And then came Finland. At this point, he had just 3 rallies with the car, and the boss recommended he take it easy because Finland is, well, the fastest rally in the world. But this is Colin McRae, Mr. When in Doubt, Go Flat Out. And true to his motto, he totaled the car before the rally even started. Except the triple roll didn't kill the Subaru. So it was being back into shape with some hammers, and McRae hit the trails again. And then he rolled it 7 times. But that Legacy just would not die. Every crash, and there were many, just ended up back on its wheels, and Colin put it in gear and kept going 100%. Regardless of how many trees Colin flattened with the roof of his Subaru, nothing important broke, which meant that the car still worked. And the Finnish crowds went nuts over this absolute wreck of a Subaru flying down stages at full speed. McRae finished in the top 10 with an utterly ruined Legacy and cemented his place in rallying history. The Legacy, though, was not going to be a part of that history. It just wasn't quick, and Subaru was planning on replacing it with the Impreza in 1994. But they wanted at least one win for the Legacy's legacy, and Colin was happy to oblige. he pulled off a brilliant drive in New Zealand to win his first WRC event and score the Legacy's only rally win, allowing for the much more successful Impreza to make its debut in 1994. The Legacy may not have been very successful on the rally stages, but it was very successful in the showroom. It sold very well and continued to impress for the second generation. Sales increased from 800,000 to over 900,000 by the end of the second gen's run, and that is because of one particular variant, the Outback. Essentially a lifted estate car, it was Subaru's first crack at the lucrative SUV market, and thanks to their genius marketing strategy, the Outback single-handedly saved Subaru's North American endeavors and led to the Outback being spun off as its own model in 1999. Now, the Legacy may not have been rallying anymore, but that didn't stop Subaru from making them fast. The RS was the best America got, but the Japanese always saved the best for themselves, in the form of the twin turbo. As the name suggests, it had a twin turbocharged variant of the EJ20 that made at least 276 horsepower and could do 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds with the full-time all-wheel drive. But that wasn't even the best version, because a wagon variant called the GTB was sold between 1996 and 1998 and featured, again like the previous gen and like the future and pretzel wagons, a detuned twin turbocharged version of the EJ20 on top of Bilstein struts, better brakes, and functional aero mods, including a hood scoop. Sick! Now, compared to the wild first and second generations, the third gen was more tame in some respects, more of a BMW 3 Series rival, which means we're not going to talk about the normal everyday ones, because yeah, it was important to talk about those for the first generation because it was the first, and it was important to talk about those for the second generation because of the Outback, but barring the weird little Baja pickup variant, the normal Legacies for the third gen were kind of boring. So we're only going to talk about the performance versions, okay? Alright, starting with the B4. It featured the same sequentially twin turbocharged Boxer 4 from the previous generation that made 276 horsepower. But technology had improved considerably by 2001, and the B4 got a more efficient turbo system which reduced lag, and the hood scoop was improved to increase the effective airflow to the intercooler. And then they completely redid the gear ratios and strengthened up the gearbox, and then paired it to a viscous LSD. Then the suspension and the brakes were honed in at the Nürburgring to make it handle like a sports sedan should, and all this made it the fastest Legacy to date, doing a 114 around Suzuka, right along its more expensive BMW rivals. But that wasn't even the fast one, because STI wanted to have a go. Subaru Technica International had been tuning WRXs and running rally teams for years by this point, and they were finally given keys to the Legacy in 2002. The STI S401 was the last sequential turbocharged Subaru, so STI made sure there was nothing left on the table. The hand-built EJ20 was tuned to 300 horsepower and was paired to the WRX's gearbox. It also got the STI suspension, and brakes, and interior, and styling keys. And then they topped it off with some tasty BBS rims and a 0 to 60 time of around 5 seconds. 400 were supposed to be built, but only 286 were actually finished, which means each vehicle certification plate goes up to 400, but you will never see the 400th S401. Now honestly, I would rather have this over any WRX, short of the 22B. I mean, they're basically the same car, but this is much rarer and much more mature than the sort of hooligan-esque Impreza. And yet, it's not the strangest Legacy. No, that honor belongs to the Blitzen. Blitzen is German for lightning, and this Japanese sedan, or estate, is named after a German thing because it was styled by Porsche. Yeah, it was styled by that Porsche, paired with that 276 horsepower EJ20, and fitted with a bunch of STI parts for good measure. It's the marriage I never knew I needed, and I think it's the best looking variant of the Legacy. It's amazing looking, especially in red. It also marked the peak of the Legacy. As WRX sales went international in the early 2000s, there wasn't much of a reason to make multiple performance sedans that were, well, essentially the same car. So with that on their minds, STI sent off their legacy endeavors with the 4th generation 2009 STI S402. Like the previous S401, it was essentially a WRX with a legacy body on top. So it had a 289 horsepower single turbocharged EJ255 engine with 6-piston Brembos, Bilstein suspension, and forged BBS wheels with sport tires wrapped around them. It was another proper performance car that they actually bothered to produce in the full 400 units, unlike the last generation. And with that, the fun was pretty much done. Yes, 5th generation legacy fans, they did make a 2.5 GT model with the proper manual and the 280 horsepower STI engine, but it wasn't the same as the proper S models. And then, just to solidify Subaru's change, they got rid of the 2.5 as well for the 6th and 7th generations, and the fastest version you can buy today is a 2.4-liter turbocharged Boxer version, making 260 horsepower. So the legacy is still very much around, but not much is being done with it. And considering Subaru won't even give us a new STI, it's doubtful they will do anything with this once legendary car.
Very